Could you live in 200 square feet? We certainly did when we lived in Korea, and we loved it.
The thing my wife and I have been completely obsessed with for the past few years is tiny living. There's a phenomenon taking place in the US where some people are preferring a more minimalist lifestyle where they have less things but more time and freedom.
Our tiny studio apartment was in a high-rise building right in the middle of Seoul. Hi, I'm Charlene with Journey Down the Road, where we talk about simple living in small spaces, as we have been doing this ourselves for a very long time and in many places. We want to inspire you to live more simply by living in small spaces to create a sustainable lifestyle so that you can have more freedom and opportunities. In this video, I will share with you the pros and cons that we learned while living in such a small space, so that way you have a better idea of what to expect when living this type of lifestyle. If you have also lived in small spaces or currently live tiny, let us know in the comments. We'd love to connect with you small space dwellers. We were obsessed with tiny houses and couldn't get enough of those tour videos on YouTube. Then we found out about airstreams and van life, and we were hooked. In Korea, especially Seoul, the population is very dense. So it is common to see high-rise buildings everywhere filled with tiny studio apartments. There's obviously more space to build up than out. There are many pros and cons to living in a small space, and I'll break that down for you now, based on the experience that we've had. Let's start with the first pro. The first pro is that having a smaller space helps you to keep the place more tidy. You will be more strategic about keeping essentials that fit into a smaller space because you will soon realize that not everything will fit in a small space or would make sense to even have in a smaller place.
Behind here is where we store all of our travel luggage. Since there's nowhere to put it, I just put everything back here, and I put this bar across and then wrap this sheet over it.
Another pro is that you will find yourself buying less stuff or junk to fill up your studio with. Now that's more money in your pocket, and it will make you rethink what you actually need on a day-to-day basis versus what you think is nice to have, but you don't need or use very often. The third pro is that living in a small space causes you to live outdoors more by getting out to enjoy some fresh air, taking a walk, exploring, and meeting up with people.
So up here is our little stands. We're gonna get some food in these tents. Look at all the people up here. A lot of good energy going on, huh? Yeah, these are tents. Street food.
Think of all the things that you would normally do in a larger space besides sleeping, eating, and getting ready in the bathroom. For instance, working out or having a get-together with a bunch of people that come over. You would just do those same things outdoors or meet up with people at a cafe or restaurant. There is so much to explore in Seoul, or any city for that matter, that living in a small space gets you out of the house so that you can explore more of those things. There are also a few cons to living in small spaces, so we're going to talk about those now. One con is not having distinct living areas, such as a living room, bedroom, and kitchen area. You would just have to adjust and use one room as a multifunctional space. For us, our studio had our bedroom, living room, office, kitchen, laundry room, and all of that in one place. Our bathroom, thankfully, was its own separate space with a door, but It was a wet bath, so don't even get me started on that. Not a fan, but it was doable.
So, this is a wet bath, as before. That's the shower head. Everything goes straight down to the floor and drains down in there. And you know, it doesn't really take that long before it dries.
Another con is having to sacrifice certain comforts and forego things that you might want that just wouldn't work in a small space. If you were dreaming of that perfect sofa set or king size bed, it may not always work out in a small space. And in fact, it probably just wouldn't work out. We certainly had to experience that as we slept in separate beds, even as a married couple. Although one of those beds was a fold-up futon couch, so that was kind of nice to have a separate couch off on the side of the room. Oh, and forget the dining room table. Although I have seen some folks in smaller studios getting very clever with maybe a small table or a desk that they use for kind of a dining room table and an office space. Luckily in Korea, it's common to sit on the floor while you eat. So we just had a little table that we propped up on the floor and we ate from that and then folded it back up, put it under the bed when we were not eating. So that worked. Another con is having to figure out some type of an organizational strategy that fits your needs, time, and your sanity. Now, if you like organizing, then this might actually be fun for you and not so much of a con. But especially for married couples who have to be in sync with one another and be on the same page, there might be more communication and expectation conversations happening. The strategy of organizing can come with a bit of compromises on both sides. That's what makes this con so uncomfortable, yet it can be rewarding if you strive to make it work. I'm sure there are many more pros and cons that we could talk about here, so if you think of anything, go ahead and drop them in the comments so we can have a conversation about it. To be honest, we personally never really felt any lack or frustration living in a small space because it just seemed to fit with our personality and really at the end of the day had everything that we needed to live. We actually really enjoyed our little small oasis and made the most of it. Now, since we only had a small dorm-like fridge and a one-burner stove, we got very creative when we went grocery shopping and when we decided what type of meals we were going to cook for that day or that week.
We have a one-burner stove, which causes for creativity in the kitchen. It's really small, and here's a look inside. So right now, garlic, and here's our freezer, lentils.
The simple memories that we made in that studio are still very memorable for me today. We learned to work together and be creative as we lived in a smaller space instead of having a larger house where we could just go into different places away from each other. We had to learn to grow and face each other every day, and really it has only strengthened our relationship. I've met other people who say that they have to get away from their spouse at times and that it would be very difficult for them to live the way that we do, and I get it. I know that this lifestyle is not for everyone, but for us it works. We've made it work, and it is worth the freedom and opportunities that we get to enjoy today because of it. How about you? Is living in a small space for you or not? I'm curious to know. Let us know in the comments. If you want to watch the original video that we made about our tiny apartment in Seoul and a video tour of a larger yet small apartment in Korea, click on the screen to watch those videos next. We'd love to have you join us on this journey. Make sure to subscribe if you're interested in videos about simple and small space living. See you in the next video. Bye!